So hello, welcome and welcome back to Phantasma Paranormal. My name is Jack and I am so happy to have you here. If this is your first time here, then this is going to be a little bit of a reaction video to a channel which I've reacted to before, and they're called Paranormal TEDIUM. The boys there, Rich and Steve. If you don't know who they are, in short, they look at things in the paranormal, such as tropes, such as evidence, things that maybe paranormal investigators, ghost hunters, whatever you want to call them, use, and looks at things in a very logical and skeptical manner, which gives, a lot of us a lot more of an open eye and help us be able to scrutinize things a little bit more instead of just going for blind belief. If you have like maybe any preconceived biases, if you maybe have just blind belief and maybe it's something to do with spiritualism, what have you, or just accepting things at face value, which there's a lot of that in the paranormal. So it looks at things in a very skeptical, logical way that's easy to understand. It's in no way to bash anybody, and like this video is not going to be to bash these boys, because I fully support what these lads do, and I fully encourage you to go check out their channel. Rich's complete and utter breakdowns are really quite brilliant, and we have pretty good banter back and forth in comment sections and also through email as well. I like to think I've got a very good rapport with these boys. I fully support what they do, and I think they're funny. So it shines a really nice light on just saying things as they are. Like there's been, obviously some of our experience, they are a little bit different. So my experiences may be a little bit different to theirs with in certain circumstances, but I'm fully willing to acknowledge that I could be completely wrong about things and be willing to accept other people's input, which is not very common for the paranormal. The paranormal world is very much ITC, Israel Transcommunication, whatever you want to call it. It's very black or white. A lot of people are very black or white. Is either you believe or you don't, you're just a hater or whatever. But I like to think that there's an area of grey. This is not in a way, this video is not in a way to say I'm right and they're wrong, or, they're right, I'm wrong. It's nothing to do with that. What it really is just to continue the discussion, just forward the conversation. And I will explain why maybe my experiences may differ. And just to why I want to talk about this and why I kind of want to react to a lot of the things that Rich was saying in this video. There's a few of them which I do definitely agree with, and a few of them which I did kind of go, okay, that's interesting. That's something for me to really, take some stock in. But some of my experiences have been very different. And obviously, none of us are going to have the exact same experience, because if we did, it wouldn't be called the paranormal, would it? And, these lads are fully willing to accept that they could be completely wrong, which same as I have to accept I'm completely wrong. But there's only a small number of people that I've seen who will actually challenge the most, common beliefs, and they will just completely just go for it. And it just seems that nobody in the paranormal really, aside from a few, have got any guts to really just say things as they are. But I appreciate what these boys do. I fully support what they do. I appreciate what they do. And it's just logical, easy to understand. But this video, like I said, a few things I agree with, a few things I don't. But anyway, I'm just going to get on with this video, as this is something which I wanted to react to, as hopefully it will further the discussion between us and the paranormal community, hopefully open up some doors between, skeptics, believers, what have you, and so we can all come together without any name calling, without any, throwing shit back and forth at each other. It's just going to be a way for us all to come together, just discuss things and be able to just open up the conversation, and instead of have black and white, find that grey area, which we truly need. Because if we don't get into that grey area and discuss these things in an open way, fully accepting that any of us could be wrong, then how the hell is this field going to progress any further? It won't. So anyway, I'm going to get on with this video for Rich's complete and utter breakdown of the spirit box. So without further ado, take it away, Rich.
If you check out pretty much any of the ghost hunting TV shows and YouTube channels these days, then you'll no doubt come across one of these little buggers, the PSB-7 Spirit Box. This one's the PSB-7T version, but the original device was first seen on a Ghost Adventures live episode back on the 30th of October 2009. Now, this is by no means the only spirit box available. There are others, but it is the one invented by Gary Galka. It's also the third and last device of his that I'll be breaking down in this series. In the US, these spirit boxes are typically available for $99. Here in the UK, they're usually around the 99 quid mark. So what do spirit boxes do? Well, the ProMeasure website, which is the site where Gary sells all his ghost hunting devices, direct to the gull. I mean, to ghost hunters.
I know this ain't exactly related, but, you know, like Rich likes to do this, just pokes a little bit of fun, you know? It's just a little bit of banter, so don't worry. Like, all of us are going to have different opinions, and you got to accept you got different opinions, but there is a lot of times in the comments that even if me and Rich or Steve don't agree with each other on something, or there's just something which we're maybe just unsure about, whatever, then just have a laugh, have a bit of banter. There's nothing wrong with that, and there's no need for like name calling or any of that shit. So that's just this only little bit which I wanted to say just about that little bit here.
States that when used by properly trained individuals under certain circumstances, our spirit box will provide results similar to that of an EVP recorder, but in real time. The site doesn't elaborate on the certain circumstances, and I'm not sure your everyday ghost hunter qualifies as a properly trained individual either, but we'll just run with it.
Okay, this is a point I fully 100% agree with. I mean, I fully believe, like I've said this countless times in videos, that there is no such thing as a pro. That gets thrown around a bit too often in the paranormal for my liking. Professionals, calling people like Zach Bagans, you know, from Ghost Adventures a professional. Like, don't even get me fucking started. None of us are pros. Nobody here who does anything similar to what I do or whatever is a pro. I'm just a bloke who has some spirit boxes, likes to experiment, and try and see if anything talks back. That's really all I am. I'm not a scientist or nothing. I'm not a pro in any field. I don't have a PhD or whatever the hell, you know. But even like the certain circumstances as to what Rich was saying, you know, with Gary Galker and such, you know, there is never, like, even people like Huff and Hope and so on, just they never specify exact things. It's always based on things like spiritualism. It's based on a lot of, well, belief. I've said this to Rich before. I've said it countless of times to you guys, and some of you get a bit fed up with me saying it, but I think blind belief will always trump fact, because people in the paranormal hate having their bubbles burst. They absolutely hate having the bubble burst. And some people just want to bury their head in the sand and just go, no, it's not true, it's not true. But only thing is, especially when you're in this field, because there's so much that's unexplained, maybe not necessarily paranormal in nature, you have to accept that you could be absolutely, completely 100% wrong. For all I know, you know, I could have been talking to dead people for all this time, could have been talking to aliens for all this time, fairies, what have you, or could be talking to nothing at all. You know, these are the things which you must take into account. And it's just, you know, part and parcel of being, you know, in this paranormal field, and there's not really much you can do to escape that apart from just have a bit of more of an open mind and be willing to accept other people's views and opinions coming into this, regardless if they're a believer, skeptic, or what have you.
In any case, your intrepid ghost hunter will ask questions into the ether, then wait for responses from the astral plane, all whilst the spirit box sweeps through the AM or FM radio frequencies, either forwards or in reverse.
Just to very quickly interject, because I know a lot of people get confused, especially, you know, I got confused at the beginning when I first started doing this stuff, but, you know, absolutely, when it comes to, you know, spirit boxes, things like a PSB7, which is designed for spirit communication, you can go into reverse sweep, which some people think it's reversing the audio. It's not reversing the audio, it's just sweeping the opposite direction, whether you're on AM or FM. So I just wanted to quickly interject that, just so we're all on the same page.
And at a sweep rate that can be chosen from a set range. I have questions. How are these responses not just radio station contamination? Why does the spirit box need to sweep through the frequencies for supposed ghosts and spirits to be able to communicate? And what is the originating information and documentation that the process for how this device works is based on?
Why does the spirit box radio have to sweep? It's a good question. It's a very fair question, I think. Something which, you know, it's such an obvious question which stares you right in the face, but I don't think many of us have ever thought about it. But yeah, I've seen quite a few people do tests where spirit communication is just sitting on just one station that's just purely static, and sometimes they don't get anything. I have seen results where they got something, but only because spirit communication, even if it does happen or can be considered communication, is rare. It does not happen all the time. Maybe 9 out of 10 times. You know, it's there is a lot of spirit box channels on YouTube that will portray themselves as having this great mythical spiritual connection and love with these spirits or whatever, which I don't know, maybe they do, but spirit communication does not happen 100% of the time whenever you switch a spirit box on. It just doesn't. I don't know why it doesn't, but it just does not happen like that. But whenever I have gone through a sweeping radio, whether it's going to be a PSB7, for example, even something which is not designed for spirit communication for that purpose, which may be like a Roberts radio, which I've got, and or maybe a Jensen, something like that, or maybe a COS, when it's hacked in a certain way, or hacked, broken, soldered, snipped a wire to basically make it scan, through either AM or FM without stopping, right? So whenever I've done that, admittedly, yeah, I have to accept that, okay, this could be something or it could be radio. You have to accept that. That could be a possibility. All I'm saying to Rich is that I have had communication I cannot possibly explain. Not saying it's spirit, but is so back and forth. I've only had a handful of occasions I can count on one hand where it's been really back and forth. I can't explain that. Could it just be coincidence? I don't know, maybe. But from doing this over a long period of time, I was just maybe half the time yes, maybe half the time no. But all I'm saying is I have had what might be communication that I cannot possibly explain in that regard.
Right. I think the best way to answer all of my previous questions would be to start with the last one. So let's jump straight in. The theory behind how these devices work is that ghost spirits and entities can communicate via white noise, commonly known as static. This is the fucking awful hiss heard in between stations when tuning a radio or a really old analog TV. White noise, in this instance, is the audio manifestation of the cosmic microwave background radiation, or CMBR, which is present throughout the universe. According to the inflation model of the origins of the universe, more commonly known as the Big Bang Theory, CMBR is a byproduct of the initiation of the universe nearly 14 billion years ago. So who came up with the theory that supernatural entities can communicate in this way? Well, like seemingly every twatting subject that I research that relates to the paranormal, there's extremely little specific information to be gleaned. What info there is just sends you round in circles.
Yeah. Can't exactly argue with that. But that is a very important word that Rich has used, and it's a word that doesn't get thrown around enough, in my opinion, which is theory. Whenever I explain something about what spirits might be, I never say what spirits could, I never say what they are. I never say spirits are dead people, spirits are aliens, they're this. I say, okay, what if they could be this, they could be that? And it's important to state if it's a theory or not, because a theory is just that. It's just speculation. And especially with white noise, can they communicate through white noise? Some people say yes, some people say no. But at this stage in the game, when it comes to science, when it comes to actual proper fact, nobody knows. I don't care if it's Huff, don't care if it's Hope, don't care if it's Gold Rush, whoever. Nobody knows. And I've always said this, even the existence of spirits themselves. I remember I had a friend of mine who said this to me, that the only way we can truly prove that spirits exist is if we can DNA test them somehow to find out if they're truly real. But I don't think that's ever going to be possible. But when it comes to, for Rich, when he goes into a deep dive into his research with CMBR, the energy and such, and talking about these things in a sensible, logical way that you can't possibly argue with, because when it comes to anything based in the paranormal, I say you have to go on fact, you have to go on science, because science can't be disproved. I do admit that science can't explain absolutely everything. I don't think it can explain everything. There are things out there that we cannot understand. Some people say that heaven is real, that, when we die, we're going to go to heaven, turn to a spirit or whatever. But the only way we're going to find out is when we're fucking dead. Like it or not, that's the only way you're going to find out. Sorry. You can believe in your God, believe in your heaven or whatever, but until we die, we ain't never going to know. Even just to add on to this, there are many people who, I'm going to say his name quite a lot, I imagine, in this video, but Huff Paranormal will often say the spirits speak through manipulation of audio. While that's a very good theory, it is just that, a theory, but yet categorically states this is a categorical state, that this is how they speak. But guess what? He don't know, we don't know, we're not scientists. all we can do is research and just make some educated guesses, I guess. So a lot of the paranormal is speculation. Otherwise, it wouldn't be called paranormal. It would just be called normal if we knew everything. That's why it's called paranormal or unexplained.
If anyone, after watching this vid, has a definitive lead, then please let me know down in the comments. What I would suggest though, is that the theory was most definitely impressed on society's collective subconscious by the release of the movie Poltergeist back in 1982, and is most probably responsible for most of today's current belief in this theory.
When I first watched this, I was really happy that Rich actually brought this up, because I've spoken about this before on my channel. I did my own video on this particular subject about how movies and television can really influence how you think about the paranormal, about spirituality, ghosts, what have you. It can really do a lot to influence you. Like, there was a lot of, even, I suppose, we're all guilty at some point that even when I was a kid, whenever I'd watch horror films or anything that's related to the paranormal, it would always seem to be, okay, it portrays as this, says it's a true story, so it must be this way. But, you remember, nobody was really scared of the Ouija board until The Exorcist came out. It does make you think. And plus, I have always said, that the way it's portrayed in, like, TV shows, for example, like Ghost Adventures, I just think of Zach Bagans as an actor. A very good actor, I will say. But I'm not saying they don't get genuine evidence. I'm not saying they don't, but at the same time, it's... You watch a horror film to go get scared. It's not a horror film if it's not scary, So if there's not jump scares or anything like that. What makes a horror film a horror film? What makes a comedy film a comedy? But it is just that. It's designed to be a certain way anyway. And there's a lot of stuff, especially about when Satanism, for example, is introduced into horror films, which a lot is just so fucking wrong and it's so irritating. And it presents this stereotype as to what that represents the paranormal, what represents something that's related to horror or related to a certain group or ideal or such. And TV and movies can have a very big influence and impact. And a lot of what my a lot of friends believes, I have spoken about the Ouija board plenty of times, for example, relating to The Exorcist, and I've said the Ouija board, I fully believe, is a ton of bollocks. I'm sorry. Some of you believe you got genuine evidence. I am sorry. Until I see that planchette move on its own, I will not believe in the Ouija board. I am sorry. That you can't convince me, because how do you know, there's not in your subconscious that you are moving it? How do you know? You don't know what may be at play, and there's been science, from that, which I fully, and plus the Ouija board, for example, was sold, as a toy, was sold basically as a toy for families and even for couples at one point. And, there was just nobody batted an eyelid until films like The Exorcist came out, and then suddenly it exploded all of a sudden overnight of all these things which are just so blatantly wrong. So it is amazing, and I fully agree with Rich, what he said about the fact that movies and TV can have a very big impact on your subconscious mind and have a very big impact on beliefs going forward. Fully believing that it's like that anyway. It's like seeing films such as The Conjuring, what else, Insidious and such. I fully believe that's what kind of the paranormal was really like, until I started to get into doing this myself, and I was like, oh, lo and behold, it's nothing like it is on TV. It's nothing like it is, in films. In fact, sometimes it's quite downright fucking boring. And that's just the reality sometimes. I mean, I don't find it boring. I find it really interesting because I've done this for so long. But it is really, truly amazing, the impact which, that can have on culture.
From the research I've put into this subject, it appears that the theory most probably originated out of the quest for EVPs, with the likes of Attila von Saleh, Friedrich Jürgensen and Konstantin Rodive. But whereas these early EVP progenitors were only recording alleged spirit voices onto vinyl or reel-to-reel tape for later review, a spirit box alleges real-time two-way communication. So who came up with that idea? The first of these devices appears to have been the Spiricom. This device was the brainchild of one George Meek back in 1970. Meek claimed to have gotten the design information via a medium from the spirit world.
And I got told I was going to be gifted magical powers from an alien from the magical planet of Zog. Like, only thing is, you people, I see it so much in the paranormal saying, my guides told me this, or God told me this deity told me this. How the fucking hell do you know? Unless you can DNA test that person, how the hell do you know? How do you even know what you're talking to? How do you know you're talking to a dead person? You don't. How do you know you're talking to an alien? You don't. How do you know you're talking to a fairy? You don't. It's just, even with celebrity spirit box sessions, which, yes, I know, I can kind of understand to a point. I mean, I've done a few myself, but only thing is, the way I think it should be approached is the way of, you don't know who or what you're communicating with, or if you're communicating with anything at all. But the only thing is, what Rich was saying about the two-way communication, it's not always two-way. A lot of the times, the spirit box doesn't actually work. It doesn't actually work. And communication is not 100% guaranteed. I don't know why, it just isn't. Would we like it to be? Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%, of course. But unfortunately, it just isn't. But only thing is, when people make these outlandish claims that they're talking to specific celebrities, that these celebrities' spirits were in their home, well, how do you know? How do you know that Michael Jackson wasn't another spirit called Michael Jackson? How do you know that Martin Luther King wasn't the only Martin Luther King to have ever existed? And plus, maybe, how do you not know, for whatever, it could be a spirit that's just impersonating that celebrity that you want to contact just to fuck with you, just to play a joke. These things could happen, you've got to think a bit more realistically about these things. For all I think, I ask a question and I say, are you a dead person? And maybe I hear yes through a PSB7. How do I know that it's not like some alien up in a friggin' spacecraft that's just going, this dickhead? These things could be a possibility. I know it's a little bit silly and, I'm poking a bit of fun at this, but you know what? We have a good banter. We have good rapport back and forth, and we like to have a bit of a giggle about this kind of stuff, because there's a lot in the paranormal which I fully recognize, which is completely, ridiculous and completely stupid, quite a bit of it. But it's good to just poke a little bit of fun and just speculate, because who's really right?
In 1975, Meek became acquainted with one William O'Neill, who was an electronics engineer and self-professed medium. O'Neill had also been working on a similar device, and in 1977 claimed to have successfully established two-way audio communications with his spirit guide, Doc Nick.
Hi, everybody! Hi, Dr. Nick!
This interested Meek to the point where he and O'Neill began work on the Spiricom Mark III with guidance from Doc Nick. The last version of the Spiricom was the Mark IV, and the complete 120-page technical manual is freely available online, to which I'll leave a link in the vid description. Before I move on, it would be remiss of me not to mention the Frank's box and its creator, Frank Sumption. Also known as the Ghost Box, this device appears to more closely resemble modern-day spirit boxes, although it only swept through the AM frequency band. According to a blog on the Sinister Coffee and Creamery website, Sumption also claimed he received his design instructions from the spirit world, who also informed him he was a purple princess from a planet called Pleiades. Seriously, a purple princess from the planet Pleiades? Moving swiftly on, but a pattern does appear to be emerging, don't you think? Sumption made 180 of these devices, of which only 97 currently remain, and were given away for free. But only to those that the spirits instructed him to. As for exactly how this process is supposed to work, not one person within the ghost hunting community has been able to supply me with an answer. Trust me, I've asked. Oh, they'll state it's all down to twatting energy till they're blue in the face. But nobody seems to know in what form this energy takes. Even though science has had a fucking pretty good handle on all the types of energy that exist for a while now. When asked, all people will say is, we know it just works. Reaching much?
And I'm telling you now, Rich, I agree with you. You're not going to get the answer, because guess what? Nobody knows. No one knows. And I don't think anybody's going to ever know. Like I said, I don't think science can prove everything. No, will science be able to prove that spirits are real, or even what they are? I very much doubt it. Because otherwise, it would be, it wouldn't be unexplained. It is a very difficult sort of thing, the paranormal, because a lot of it is based on speculation and blind belief. Personally, I'm a fan of Frank's assumption, but obviously not taking a jab at you or anything, Rich. I am not taking a jab, I promise. I actually really love what you do. So, and plus, you gave me permission to do this, so we're gonna poke a bit of fun back and forth. So, it's just good banter, really. But it's good to forward this conversation on a bit more. But there's so much of the paranormal which. There's, like I said, there's so many channels that believe we have progressed so far. We haven't. We are actually, in my opinion, we've been at a standstill for a long time, in my opinion. And I know some people are probably going to get quite pissed off with me in the comments about that. So all I can say is, bring it on. I won't lose any sleep over you. So have a Coke and a smile and shut up. By the way, points if you know what comedy special that's from.
Moving on to the second question, why do spirit boxes need to sweep? If supposed spirits can communicate via white noise, why not pick just one frequency that's purely white noise with zero radio contamination and try receiving ghostly voices there? The answers to these questions are inextricably linked to my first question about radio station contamination.
Yeah, fair question. I had a little bit of a very loose theory, and I'm calling it a very loose theory. But the only way I can truly put it across to you guys is if you've ever seen Transformers, that terrible Michael Bay film. I freaking hate those films. But basically, Bumblebee is able to speak through a radio, basically, through the radio in his car body, because he's a Transformer. And is able to use part of songs, parts of radio broadcasts, frequencies, and so on to basically create his message. Can spirits do that? Well, some people think they can, but the only thing is, the reason why that's very loose is because that would imply that spirits know what the next lyric of the song's coming up, what the news broadcaster is going to say if it's live. These are the things which make it a little bit tricky. But I say that is a fair question, and I think it's something for me, and I think it's something for all of us to consider, for the future, as, it's going to be going the way which, people really want, so there's some people out there who really want that hardcore communication through any means necessary, and, who are just absolutely, the most legit people, order of magnitude, Devon's, Ghostbox, there's, Life After Life, and I'm not talking about the Billy Cyrus lookalike. Oh, God. But I say, this is a fair question, but it is going to be a little bit more, going a bit more in depth as Rich goes along in this video, as you will see.
To get to those answers, I feel I need to explain my initial experiments with the spirit box before discussing my thoughts on this. The first thing I did upon receiving my spirit box, and I challenge all spirit box users to do the same before they perform any session in a location. Just do it, I know you won't. Was to create a list of every single frequency that the PSB-7 picks up on both the AM and FM bands. On the AM band, this device starts at 520 kHz and goes up to 1710 kHz in increments of 10 kHz. So that's 120 distinct frequencies. On the FM band, it starts at 87.5 MHz and goes up to 108 MHz in increments of 0.1 MHz or 100 kHz. So that's 206 distinct frequencies. Then I manually scanned through each frequency on both bands and noted down the frequencies where radio stations came through. What I found was most interesting. Radio station transmissions bleed over into adjacent frequencies, which is more apparent on the FM band. The spread of frequencies can be up to 5 increments where a station can still be heard. However, this does still occur on the AM band, where specific radio station frequencies fall just off the 10 kHz increment step. This is usually within 2 to 3 kHz. So what does this mean? To me, it means that when TV shows and YouTube channels state things like what we heard spanned multiple frequencies, therefore couldn't possibly be radio contamination, is that they're full of shit. Or they're just out and out lying to you.
It is a tricky thing. There is, like I said, there is spirit boxes, well, I call them spirit boxes, let's just call them broken radios or hacked radios, for example. They're not adjustable. You just have what you have. Some of them scan super bloody quick. Have I had what may be communication that I cannot explain? Yeah, absolutely. Even when I've asked for specific words, or even asked for swear words as well on occasion, or even asked for like full sentences. You know, there's some things which I cannot explain. The only thing I really disagree with Rich here is that could some of it be coincidence? Yeah, of course. I mean, you are working with a radio. You are going to hear radio no matter what, and I don't think there's anything you can do. Well, there's nothing you can do about that. We're going to hear radio no matter what because you are using a radio. But all I'm saying is that when people say that, you know, this is a response that spanned over many bands, and it could be, okay, maybe there's like maybe a longer word or a sentence which was in that broadcast which somehow related to what the person was asking and they deemed that as an answer from spirit. That could be a possibility. However, can it happen 100% of the time? I wouldn't think so, but I don't know. You know, I don't think all of it is coincidence. I just don't. This is just from my personal experience, okay? I'm not saying Rich is wrong. All I'm saying is from my personal experience, it does not seem that way 100% of the time. However, I do see completely what Rich is saying.
The sweep rate at which frequencies are cycled through is also a factor. As mentioned near the start of this vid, the rate, which is denoted in milliseconds, is somewhat adjustable within a set range. On this Rev 5 version, the range is 100, 150, 200, 250, 300 and 350 milliseconds for both AM and FM bands. On the Rev 4 version, the AM band has different sweep rates that go up to 500 milliseconds or half a second. This means that the slower the sweep rate, the longer the spirit box will linger on any one frequency, thus having more of a chance of capturing words or part phrases from radio station broadcasts. Let's have a closer look into this and get some data. For the purposes of this experiment, I used the FM band and a sweep rate of 250 milliseconds, or quarter of a second, just to make the calculation simpler. One sweep cycle of the previously calculated 206 frequencies within the FM band takes precisely 51.5 seconds, which is also the same duration between when an individual radio broadcast will be heard repeated on every sweep cycle thereafter. The number of radio stations received will depend upon the location of the device, and in some locations, the time the device is activated. For a quarter of a second sweep rate, this also means that each of the 10 FM radio stations that can be picked up within the large facility will potentially be audible for up to a second and a quarter. So a Rev 4 version sweeping the AM band at 500 milliseconds means that stations will be audible from between half a second and a second, all of which is ample time for a word or part of a phrase to be heard. Therefore, in this particular experiment, we hear between 10 and 11.5 seconds of intermittent partial music and speech every 51.5 seconds. Again, results and durations will vary, dependent upon the location, sweep rate, and how many stations can be picked up by the device in that particular location. As a control experiment, I also chose a frequency that was the furthest away from any radio station transmissions, and that received only white noise. I ran both experiments for 5 minutes and asked the same questions at the same intervals. The results are pretty conclusive and show exactly why spirit boxes need to sweep, because if it didn't, you wouldn't get any twatting responses.
Is this pretty easy to understand? Yeah, absolutely. And I feel that, in my opinion, not saying he's wrong, not saying he's right, I feel he makes a very plausible argument. You know, it does make sense. However, the only thing which I'm going to say to you, Rich, and, you know, obviously this video, you know, completely polite as anything. These are just suggestions even to you. You know, I like to think that maybe you learn something from me and I learn something from you. But the only thing I will say is repeat the experiment a few times. Because the only reason why I say that is because, let's just say we do, you know, definitely 100% get communication when it happens, right? Let's just say we do. So we get communication on the odd occasion. I would suggest repeat the experiments a good few times, not just the once and then just deem it as, okay, it definitely doesn't work. You might have to try it a good few times before you even get any results. I mean, like I've always said to people, I could do maybe, let's just say 7 spirit box sessions in 7 days, for example. And in those 7 days, I might get nothing, or on that one day, I might get something, a word, sentence, whatever. That's all I'm saying. I would suggest just repeat it a good few times. And then, You know, I feel like, am I going to say, like, I have an authority to say, right, then you can make your decision? You can pretty much make your decision whenever you want. But that's just only just my small suggestion. You don't have to take it if you don't want to, but that's just what I would say.
Now we've shown how these devices actually work and what they receive, we need to discuss what factors and processes are at play when intrepid ghost hunters appear to get responses. As previously mentioned in my voice recorder breakdown with regards to EVPs, auditory pareidolia and psychoacoustics play a huge part when interpreting alleged paranormal audio. Even though the human brain is the most phenomenal organ and does amazing things, on both conscious and subconscious levels, it is prone to perceptual errors. To understand that, we'll need to get a few basic concepts down first. Let's start with language. All languages are made up of what are known as phonemes. As defined on ProWritingAid.com, a phoneme is the smallest unit of sound that makes up a complete word. Just a small number of these phonemes make up every single word dependent on the language spoken. For example, the common consensus is that there are 44 distinct phonemes that make up the entire English language. That's just 44 individual and unique sounds that make up each of the ever-increasing number of words we use today. If we take into account the sweep rate being used at the time of the Spirit Box session, the chances are that only snippets of words or phrases will be heard at any given point. This then gives rise to the potential misinterpretation of the phonemes heard as other words, which is where auditory pareidolia comes into play. We're trained and wired from an early age to recognise and understand human speech. So when we're subjected to something approximating human speech, our brains try to make sense and understand it. To show this process in action, I've linked a vid by a channel called Monotone Tim that I highly recommend you go and watch. In it are examples of popular songs that have been converted to MIDI, which are then played back on a MIDI piano. As the software they've used to perform the conversion can't separate out the vocals from the music, everything is converted. The results are most interesting, especially when you realise that all you're hearing are piano notes.
I shall also link said video, as I encourage you to watch it because it was actually really interesting. It was actually kind of cool. But what I will say is, you know, with pareidolia exists. I mean, how many times have you seen, let's just take visual pareidolia. How many times have you maybe been laying in bed and, you know, you've put some washing or you put some clothes, just you chucked it on a chair in the corner of the room. And I guarantee if you switch the lights off and you stare at that chair long enough, it will start to resemble a person. You know what I mean? Or what if, you know, you see orbs that, you know, you may deem as, oh my God, there's orbs, it's definitely a spirit. Well, we spoke about dust particles and all that so much on this channel. And I'm pretty sure Rich spoke about it on Paranormal TEDIUM as well, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did. But anyway, you know, visual pareidolia, auditory pareidolia, and there's also something called the power of suggestion. There's many channels out there who will, if they believe they got a response, they will put the captions underneath, as I would do in my videos. And they put the captions underneath, and it would just be something completely unintelligible that doesn't even sound like words. And it would have maybe a sentence or a word that doesn't sound anything like it. But only thing is, you stare at those words, stare at that sentence long enough, you will eventually start to hear that. But then all you can do really is suggestion from order of magnitude, just shut your eyes, listen to it, see what you hear, if anything at all. But I only put the words into my Spirit Box sessions for what I most definitely hear. And you know, a lot of you come back and agree. Some of you don't agree with me, and that's fine. And you are very helpful putting your suggestions down below in the comments and saying, Jack, I don't hear that. I heard this. I think you just heard radio. And I appreciate those comments because it makes me go, okay, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. You know, those things are very helpful. And it's not to, you know, discredit anybody. It's just to go, look, dude, I don't think you got something here. Have you considered that it might be this? You know, it's like the power of suggestion thing. And so I always, you know, I challenge the audience that watches my videos when I say, you know, listen to my Spirit Box sessions. If you hear something else rather than what I heard, just tell me in the comments and I will listen back to it. And if I think, you know, you're right, I will just happily put a comment saying, yeah, I agree with you. You know, it's just that easy. But definitely with the pareidolia, it's rife in the paranormal, and a good portion of it is just pareidolia. in my personal opinion.
Let's say our intrepid ghost hunter is doing a spirit box session in a cemetery or graveyard. Yes, there is a difference. They've already asked if there are any spirits wishing to communicate and gotten what they perceive to be a response to the affirmative. Chances are the next question will be something along the lines of, "Can you tell me your name?" The very next thing to be heard that sounds like a name will be taken as the name of the supposed ghost or spirit. Let's say our intrepid ghost hunter hears this.
Alan.
Now, I'm not going to bias you like all the ghost hunting TV shows and YouTube channels do and plant the suggestion of what this name could be. But what I am going to do is play 3 sound clips that could potentially be heard in the context of a radio broadcast. I'll leave it to you to decide where the first clip could potentially fall within each of the following. Here we go.
That was Kiss with Hell and High Water from the album Hot in the Shade.
So how did you come across this information?
Well, I was mainly concentrating on files between L and Q. This next song is by John Cougar Mellencamp.
Did you hear it? If not, don't worry. Here's the original clip again.
Alan.
Now, here's the sections of the latter 3 clips where the similar sound occurs.
With Hell and High Water between L and Q. John Cougar Mellencamp.
There are a plethora of instances where this type of misinterpretation of these intermittent sound bites, which are thrown out by spirit boxes, can occur. Now I'm sure there'll be people in the comments section below ranting, "Rich, if it's all just radio contamination and pareidolia, how come I get intelligent responses to my questions?" Well, there are a shit ton of other cognitive biases and effects that should be taken into consideration when anyone conducts a spirit box session and when reviewing the evidence.
This is why I feel I'm pretty lucky here on Phantasma Paranormal. I'm pretty lucky here to have, you know, people like Rich and Steve who we will chat in the comments for like friggin' what feels like hours or even in emails and just go, "Look, Jack, I don't agree with like this, you know, this is why, you know," and so on. And we will just talk back and forth and just go, "Right, okay, yeah," and we'll talk about things. That's just what you gotta do. But the only thing is, it's like I've told Rich millions of times, people don't like having their bubbles burst in the paranormal. Like, if I can give you an example, my dad passed away just over 8 months ago, and would I like to believe that my dad is a spirit? You know, would I like to believe he's in some sort of afterlife? Yes, obviously I would love to believe that. But the only thing is, I don't know that's even real. I don't know. For all I know, when I die, it could just be lights out and that's it. And my consciousness is just gone. I won't even know I'm dead because I'll be fucking dead. So there is definitely a lot of bias there. I could hear something which sounds like dad or sounds like my dad's name. Could it possibly be my dad? Maybe. I don't know. But at the same time, do I have to accept the fact that it might not be? You know, those are things which you have to accept. I mean, you can have the blind belief that you're talking to your loved one, and, you know, if that gives you comfort in some way, then, you know, I suppose there's the emotional sort of value in that, which can be a little bit hard for people to go, you know, this might not be a loved one, it could just be contamination. And unfortunately, sometimes that can be the case, and, you know, it can be quite saddening for people, it can anger people as well. But the only thing is, these are the realities which people just simply have to accept and deal with. Do I know I'm talking to my dad? No, absolutely not. Do I know I'm talking to a dead person? No. Do I know I'm talking to Renee? No. Do I know I'm talking to Martin Luther King? No. I don't know any of the answers to these questions. I wish I did, but I don't. But all I can have is just hope that my dad is somewhere just happy, enjoying life. That's all I can hope for. Do I hope that my consciousness will go on after I'm gone? Yeah, obviously, I hope that. I hope so. But the only thing is, a lot of the paranormal, like I said, is based on blind belief rather than actual scientific fact. Science can't explain everything, in my opinion. And yes, I am allowed my opinion, same as Rich is allowed his opinion. So the confirmation bias, it is rife in the paranormal. I don't see it as something which is ever going to stop, mostly because it doesn't get views, does it? It doesn't get subscribers. Those are things you got to think about. And there's many who will completely dismiss logical thinking, just completely dismiss rational thought, dismiss actual proof that people are wrong. And just call you a hater, just tie you with the brush of, okay, you're a non-believer, you're just a skeptic, you don't know nothing, you're stupid, whatever. And unfortunately, that's rife in the paranormal. It's rife, and I've experienced it myself, and I've gone through it. And, you know, it sucks that people are just so freaking close-minded. Nobody's willing to listen to the other side. And to be honest, it's sickening and it's saddening. And I have to accept that I could be completely wrong, and maybe Rich has to accept that he could be completely wrong. But who's right? We don't know at this point. But I do feel it's something which, this is why I wanted to do this video, because I wanted to hopefully just extend the conversation in the comments. You know, there's no hate here, there's no animosity, nothing like that. All this is just two sides coming together and just furthering the discussion, which I hope all of you will do either in this video or go to Paranormal TEDIUM and comment on this video or any of their videos. Just share your opinions. We can all be respectful here. We can all be, you know, mature adults here. Let's just talk about this stuff, because who's right? It's fun to speculate. Let's just have a chat and see if we can create a lot more of a grey area than having the paranormal just be completely black and white.
To mention all of these would be way beyond the scope of this vid, so I'll just quickly go over a couple. As I've mentioned in other vids, we are working on a vid, and potentially a series of vids, specifically about the different psychological biases and effects which are prevalent within the paranormal community, so keep an eye out for them when they drop. Have you noticed how when performing a spirit box session, ghost hunting channels ask questions and keep asking questions? Then, when one response appears to answer the last question, that's the proof of an intelligent response. They downplay or completely dismiss all the previous times they asked a question and either got the wrong response. For example, getting music or a word form response that wasn't a proper noun when specifically asking for names. A garbled response or no twatting response whatsoever. Well, that right there, that's confirmation bias at work, and it's rife within the paranormal community. The definition of confirmation bias is the tendency to actively seek out, favour, interpret and recall information in a way that only confirms a pre-existing belief, and not look for, or just completely fucking ignore, any and all information that contradicts or challenges that belief, which is what we see time and time again in all ghost hunting TV shows and YouTube channels. Next, we humans are extremely adept at attributing meaning to completely random and/or coincidental events that we perceive to be more than pure chance. For example, if you dream, think or talk about someone and that day or the next that someone gets in contact with you, does that mean you're psychic or have precognitive abilities?
Yeah, absolutely. These things can happen all the time. Like, I'm not very, I suppose, what's the word? Superstitious. That's what I wanted to say. I'm not very superstitious. You know, when people say, what's the meaning behind, you know, a penny facing upwards and it's, you know, got heads facing upwards, saying, oh, that's an angel saying hi to you. Well, not really. It's just somebody dropped a penny and it just felt that way. Or a white feather floated down from the sky and that's a sign that, you know, an angel's with you or something. Well, not really. There's a fucking pigeon nest right above me. You know what I mean? These are things which you just have to think about. Just going, yeah, not really. You're just like, oh my God, it's thunder and lightning. That means fall's mad. No, it's just the fucking weather forecast. You know what I mean? There's just not that little tidbit in here for this video.
Let's go back to our previously mentioned intrepid ghost hunter performing a spirit box session amongst the gravestones. They now have what they perceive to be the name for the alleged spirit they're talking to. They perform a quick scan of the surrounding gravestones, which reveals one with the same name. This will then become the focus for their next round of questions. Is this the grave of the talkative spirit? How many other gravestones bear the same name? It's all food for thought. So, in the face of all the information we've gone through in this vid, is there any fucking wonder that what's output from spirit boxes is interpreted as spirit communication by intrepid ghost hunters? Before spirit box users can categorically state that what they're getting in sessions are actual spirit communications, they must exercise more control over these sessions. As mentioned earlier in this vid, whenever a spirit box session is performed in a location for the first time, a manual sweep of all the frequencies should be performed, to which a note of each radio station heard should be made against the corresponding frequencies. Also, a camera should be focused on and recording the spirit box for the entire duration of the session. That way, if an alleged response is heard when the footage is reviewed, a check can be made against the list of frequencies and radio stations. This will then determine if said response fell on a frequency that contains a radio station transmission or not. If it did, then it should be dismissed.
I do definitely get your point, Rich. I do get your point, and I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just introducing something else to you. Even if it does span across a radio station when you go through all the different frequencies and such, which, good suggestion. I think it's something that all of us, even myself, can all take heed of, and I think it's a very good suggestion. However, if it is, let's just say it is direct, communication to, a very specific question, something like that. Could it very well be communication and it just happened to fall on that? Yeah, possibly. Could it just be coincidence? Maybe. But like I said, I don't think it happens 100% of the time. I don't think all of it is coincidence. But that is just from my own personal experience. For all I know, I could be completely wrong. And, anybody's happy to tell me I'm completely wrong. Or you might, side with me and think Rich is completely wrong in everything he said. And, he's just burst a little bit of it and he's just burst your bubble. But only thing is, just from my personal experience, I do not feel that it's true. However, going through all the different stations, I do feel it's something that we can all take heed of, and especially like recording the spirit boxes as well. I mean, what's the hurt? We all want to capture evidence, don't we? We all want to capture evidence of, the paranormal and spirits, whatever they are speaking. So why not, try something? Why not try these things and actually, just go for it? Because what's the harm?
Irrespective of all of this, the argument over whether spirit boxes do indeed receive spirit voices may all soon come to a head when the switchover from analog to digital radio occurs. This means that at some point in the very near future, there will no longer be any transmissions on the AM/FM frequency bands, with potentially a very few exceptions. On that day, the collective sphincters of the entire ghost hunting community will be twitching harder than a rabbit's nose in a crop of carrots. The switchover will either mean that spirit box users will be completely vindicated, as voices will still be heard even in the absence of radio station contamination, and as one they'll shout a big "fuck you" to all the hardcore skeptics and non-believers. Or they'll be left with a then proven to be useless piece of kit, as absolutely nothing is heard on it from that point on. To which all proponents of the spirit box will then have to swallow their pride and admit that they've just been talking to themselves all along. In the meantime though, I'm sure the entire ghost hunting community will continue to assert that spirit box communication is genuine. But time will tell, and we'll just have to wait and see. Who's excited for the radio digital switchover? I know we are. Leave your thoughts on the use of spirit boxes and on which way you think the switchover will go down in the comments. Whichever way it goes, you can be sure that Paranormal TEDIUM will be there to cover, analyse, discuss and potentially take the piss in the aftermath.
Just very quickly, Rich, there's a video which you have not done, which I'm surprised you haven't done. Why haven't you done this yet? I think I spoke to you about it. Why haven't you done one on Spirit Box apps? And mostly, I've got my own thoughts on Spirit Box apps, and I've pretty much, said my 2 cents, which has really fucked some people off. And, sorry, I just don't believe in apps. I'm sorry. But the thing is, I like to think I'm a very, logical person. I don't, believe much in superstition. I like to think, you got to think about things logically. You got to think about things realistically. It's like even with anything to do with Christianity or just religion in general. How do you know your invisible friend's real? You don't. You don't know. I'm sorry, but until unless there's like physical proof, I'm sorry, but there's no way you can really determine that. But the switchover. On that day when that happens, I'm going to be one of the first people to happily admit, if it comes to it, that I am 100% wrong. I've got no problem doing that. There's a lot of people that will have a problem with doing that. But I've not been afraid on this channel to come out and say, I was wrong about this. I don't have that much of a big ego that I can't admit when I'm wrong. And I will happily come out and just say, yeah, I thought it was this, but it turns out it's not this. But I don't see many people going to be following that lead in the future. And so will they be proven to be useless pieces of technology? Personally, to me, I don't think so. Do I feel these are very plausible arguments? Absolutely, 100%. And I think it's something for all of us to think about. And it's a good thing to further the discussion. If you want to further the discussion, forgot how to talk then please put it down below in the comments of this video, or go over to that video, which will be in the description down below, and comment on that video. But please be respectful. This is not intended to throw any heat their way or throw any hate that way, because like I said, I have a good rapport with them. We have a good chat back and forth, and we have very good banter. And this is just a way of furthering the discussion within the paranormal, as who's right, who's wrong, no one knows. Could all of us be wrong? I don't know. But it's a good way of just opening up these discussions. I don't see many videos like this. I'm not saying I'm the only one who's doing videos like this. I'm not saying I am. But all I'm saying is we need to open up our minds. We need to listen to the other side. There's the other side to the coin. We have to listen to the other side. We have to listen to other people's opinions, because other people are going to have opinions. You can bury your head in the sand and just be ignorant as hell and just live inside your little bubble. Or we can be realistic about this, take into consideration science, take into consideration proper facts, logic, rationality, and think about these things with research and a practical and logical way. Because what's the harm in that? I mean, you want to go out of your way to prove that, communication that we've gotten is real. So why not be able to take the suggestions, instead of taking these suggestions as a massive disappointment and just going, oh, well, this made me not want to do this anymore. No, let's take these suggestions and let's try them. And because what is the harm? I mean, we all want to prove that, spirits are truly real. So why not take these suggestions and go ahead and do that? And if it does, and maybe Rich could be completely wrong, and there is definitely results which come out of that. Because whenever I've spoken to these boys, they're very open to the idea that spirits, it could possibly be real. But I appreciate that they come at it in a very skeptical and logical way. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, this video is not intended to bash them, damage their credibility in any way. They go out of their way to do the research and go out of their way to speak about things in a logical, sensible way, which is easy for any and all of us to understand. So I hope you got something out of this video, and I hope you take heed of, some of my words and also some of Rich's words, because this is just about furthering discussion. You've heard his side, hopefully you've heard my side, and please, let's just open up a dialogue. Let's keep this conversation going. If anybody wants to react to this video, react to their video, it'll be down in the description down below. Let's just forward the conversation and let's get talking and get to that grey area that the paranormal desperately needs. So thank you very much for watching this video, and thank you Rich, thank you Steve from Paranormal TEDIUM. I look forward to the next round of videos that you're going to be doing. I'll be keeping an eye out, and I hope all of you will as well. So until next time, I'll see you guys soon. Take care, bye bye for now.